Welcome to the Burgundy and Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, you know who's riding shotgun. It's my man Reggie. What's going on, Reg?
What's up, Ken? What's up, man?
Not much. Just riding high off of a couple wins. We got a win streak going, and we're getting into the back half of the season. It's we're already happy from playing well, but now it's about to get real interesting, right?
Yeah. Well, we got some tough games coming up, man. And I know we've been talking about all of the different hurdles or some keys along the way for us to determine what this team is really about. But now that this team has gotten out to a 7-2 start, people are starting to take us serious, right? And so now we have a situation where these next 3 games is going to really tell us, are we contenders or pretenders, right? Our next 3 games is against the, I think, 6-2 Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
And then we play against the currently 6-2 Philadelphia Eagles, which will probably be 7-2 by the time we meet them the following week, because they play the Cowboys this week, and we know they've sustained some injuries and things of that nature.
Right.
But so with that, they're probably going to win. So they're going to be we're going to go to them and play them at probably 7-2, and hopefully we're 8-2.
Right.
If we able to overcome and win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But we do have a 3-game stretch here that is going to be telling, because the 3rd game is going to be against the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
They're in Maryland, and with Dak Prescott being out potentially for the next 4 games, he will not be the quarterback. So it'll most likely be Cooper Rush. But again, we'll get there when the time is there. But want to take a quick second, man, to tell everyone that we appreciate them tuning in and listening. And we don't do this often because I know it gets a little bit routine, but we do appreciate everyone listening. And if you could do us a favor, and like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast, and of course share this with some other Commander fans that you might think be interesting, especially if we're entertaining and you like our content. Please spread the word out there as we continue to do this. We do it because we love it and it's fun, and just want you to kind of come along with us. So appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're by all standards, we're ahead of schedule for our retooling, rebuild, whatever phrase that you want to use. We're ahead, and today was a clear indication that we're ahead of schedule, right? And if you're a Commanders fan and you were living under a rock, Washington went and kind of a surprising move, that it was this big of a move, but they went and got Marshon Lattimore, cornerback, all-pro, multi-year all-pro cornerback from the Saints. That alone tells you that from the top, ownership, GM, coach, they all feel like this is an opportunity to do something special, right? This doesn't mean Super Bowl, but it's like, hey, we're gonna increase our chances here, in a wise manner that's not selling the farm, right? We're not 1 player away from winning the Super Bowl. We're not, how the Chiefs tend to make a move here or there. They've got a Super Bowl contending team for the last few years. For them to go big and give up a draft pick for 1 player to get them to the next Super Bowl, it's worth it for them. We're still in a rebuild. Even though we go to the playoffs this year, we're still rebuilding next year comparatively to this year. But they went and got Marshon Lattimore. What are your thoughts on that, Reg?
Well, it was interesting. On our last podcast, I mentioned that I did not think that we would make a trade at the deadline. But I also said if we did make a trade, it would be for a cornerback.
Right.
So I was wrong, and I was also right on that. Marshon Lattimore, right? 4-time Pro Bowler, 28-year-old cornerback for the New Orleans Saints. I will be completely honest and tell you I don't know much about Marshon Lattimore other than he's a good corner that was playing for the New Orleans Saints. That's about the extent of it. But when I look at his numbers and his career, to know that he's a veteran corner, has made some Pro Bowls, and he's coming in to fill a position of need. I gotta say I like the move. The compensation wasn't too big in my opinion. I know on paper it shows that we received Marshon Lattimore in a 5th round pick, and we traded a 3rd, a 4th, and a 6th.
Correct.
For this player. And immediately you go, man, they gave away 3 picks for this guy, mid and late round picks. But as most of us know, Washington maintains and keeps their 3rd round pick because they had 2. The 3rd round pick that they traded was the pick that they received for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Jahan Dotson trade. The 6th round pick that they traded to the Saints is essentially their own pick because that was part of the John Ridgeway deal that sent him from Washington to New Orleans for a 6th rounder. So they basically sent that back. So to me, this deal comes down to we received a 4-time Pro Bowl player for essentially a 4th round pick. And they sent back a 5th, which if New Orleans continues to not play well, that's a high 5th round pick that allows you to do some things if you want to do. So Washington maintains their 3rd and their 6th round pick of their own that they already had. So to me, this was a masterful type of a trade by Adam Peters. It is still going to maintain some cap flexibility because we have plenty of it, but it wasn't like they're going to have to pay an enormous salary. And I suspect that even with this deal, there's probably some way for them to move on from Marshon at some point if he doesn't work out. But it fills a position of need, man. I understand that the talk is that potentially Marshon is going to play on the outside. St. Juice will play on the outside, but move now to cover most teams' wide receiver 2. And that's going to force Mike Sainristil back to the inside, which is apparently where he should excel more and where he played the most in college. My only concern about this is he's played mostly, Mike Sainristil I'm speaking of, has played mostly on the outside and has got comfortable playing on the outside. And it's different on the inside. He's not really played that at the NFL level. So will there be a time of adjustment for him once he moves back inside? I know it's familiar, but it's familiar from the collegiate level, not the NFL level. And so do we see some mix up early on with him playing on the inside as opposed to the outside where he has played and has played well most of this season? So overall, man, I love the trade. Love it. And I think I give it a A+.
Yeah. Marshon Lattimore is without a doubt, talent wise, definitely raises the defense, right? I don't know. I think him alone probably increases it, 10%. I think. I mean, he's one of 11 players, so that's not too far off. But it actually might be more than that. If he can, do what he's been doing. I mean, he's a 4-time Pro Bowler on a team that is consistently a bad team, right? So you need to stand out a little bit more playing for the Carolinas of the world, the Saints of the world, the Commanders in past years, compared to playing for, Buffalo, playing for Kansas City, that everybody around you is at a high level and they're making you better, right? You don't have to, you're not looking over your shoulder 10 directions because you don't know who to cover. You just need to cover your area. And so from a talent wise perspective, I this is an easy draft. When we started talking about this, normally when somebody says, "Oh, do you want XYZ player?" I always say, "What's the cost?" Right? There's a lot of players I want. I'm just not willing to pay the cost. Initially, I thought this was going to be around the second round pick for him. If we would have gotten away with a third, even better. And then the other thing that concerned me is when I initially looked at the salary cap, I thought it was significantly higher, but it looks like it's going to be in the $18 million range per year. And the other thing that I like about this trade and why this fits into the next year's plan and beyond is this isn't a rental, right? He still has this year and 2 more years on his contract. So we're getting him and his talent at an $18 million level. By the way, the top 2 or 3 cornerbacks right now are in the $24 million range. That's only going to go up over the next couple of years. And we've got the money. So we know whether it was first or second round or in free agency next year, we were going to go get a cornerback, right? We needed to improve that position. So overall, I like this. Hard not to like it once the dust settles and you see everything. Washington Commanders did release F.A. Obata to make room for that. I was wondering who it was going to be. I thought there was a chance. We all know who we thought might get because there was talk of even trading Emmanuel Forbes, right? I would have been happy if somebody would have given us a box of crackers for him, but even a box of crackers cost was too much. And so, so we're stuck with them.
I would say this. It wouldn't surprise me if FA gets brought back to practice squad or
Correct.
something
I
of
agree.
that nature. But I want to say that, Marshon Lattimore,
right?
Obviously he raises the floor and improves the cornerback room. For me, we now have a true number 1 corner
Correct.
who will be able to defend team's number 1 receiver. I know Benjamin St. Jude gets a lot of flack and catches a lot of heat. But the problem is, man, the guy's playing out of position. And so to be able to step down and play a team's number 2 receiver, it's not going to be an easy task, but it's a lot different than playing team's number 1.
Right.
And so now I would think that with Marshon being able to cover the wide receiver 1 and he's playing wide receiver 2, it's going to make the defense a lot better because, again, being able to cover might be the difference between a sack and a completion or incomplete. And so just being able to cover for that 1 more second that I think these guys will be able to do. So I think it's a great move, man. It's a very, very shrewd type of a deal that we see good teams make, right?
Yeah.
You sit here and you go, the Kansas City Chiefs, for an example, they don't need any help. They're undefeated. And it just always seems to be a player that falls into their lap and you go, man, how come we couldn't have done that? Or that's all they pay for that guy?
Right.
I mean, look, they need a receiver. They go and got a guy who is very good in DeAndre Hopkins. They needed players before, and what they do, they just go out and sign a guy. He just comes in and is productive. So it's just what good teams do. And so to me, this wasn't just looks like they just reaching or just made a move for the sake of making a move. This was a very calculated, smart, shrewd transaction by Adam Peters, man. And when you consider what free agency could potentially look like next year and what they do in the draft, I mean, what can you say, man? I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but based on what they've done thus far between the draft, the free agents they brought in, and then of course this first trade, in-season trade that they've had some runtime on the job, man. He's cooking. He's cooking, man.
Yeah, and to jump on the Adam Peters bandwagon with trades and handling this team. I mean, there was a lot of people initially that weren't happy that we traded Deshawn Jackson and only got a 3rd round pick for him.
Jahan.
What'd I say? What'd I say?
You said Deshaun. Who's
Deshaun?
Deshaun?
I said Deshaun. Oh, Deshawn Jackson.
Deshaun.
Man, hey, once again, I accidentally butcher a name. That was just misspeaking. I knew what it was. I just misspoke.
Yeah, that's the player you created in Madden, Deshaun Jackson.
Well, you just for a second there, you said we got Marshawn Lynch, right? But I didn't give you a hard time.
But I caught myself. I caught that I was saying it wrong.
Anyway,
but Deshaun Jackson.
But to go back to that, yeah, Dotson has done almost nothing with Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia was happy. They're like, oh man, he's going to be a number 3. Man, he's a number 2 quality that we're getting at number 3. Well, he hasn't even been number 3, right? And then, and so we end up going and getting using that trade as part of it to get Lattimore. And again, this is we're talking about a Pro Bowl player for basically what we got rid of Dotson for, a Pro Bowl versus somebody who couldn't make the team. And we got a 3rd round pick. So it just goes to show that people are paying attention. They're not locked in on a player just because, oh, that's our player, he's going to do this. They didn't see that happening. And good teams make those decisions, right? Nobody wants to trade their 1st round draft pick. Nobody wants to cut their linebacker, defensive end 1st round pick, right? But you do what's best for the team. In contrast, teams that don't do proper trades and moves, the Dallas Cowboys, if you haven't heard, they went out and got Jonathan Mingo. And I know what you're going to say. Who? He's a wide receiver. They gave up a number 4 pick. They basically gave up what we gave up to get Marshon Lattimore, right?
This kid is terrible.
They need wide receiver help. The Cowboys do. So they went and got him. They gave up a number 4 pick for him. He's had 12 receptions for the year, 121 yards, and 0 touchdowns. That's what they gave up a number. That's what they gave up a number 4 pick for. And you look at what we gave up. Basically, you want to call it a 3rd. You want to call it a 3rd and a 6th. Whatever combination you want to do. We gave up somewhere in the neighborhood of the same for a 4-time
Pro
Bowl cornerback. One of the most needed positions in the NFL. Period.
Yeah, and he's one of the top corners on the market. So
correct.
So great move. But when I tweeted about the Cowboys move, and I basically just said this was a move by Jerry just for the sake of moving to try to pacify the fans, because they didn't go all in the offseason, and people have been complaining the team is not playing well, the record is not good, and Jerry's being questioned and being called to the carpet about the lack of move. And so, well, look, we went out in free agency and signed the guy. And to your point, you're like, who is this guy? And then you look at his stats, and they're terrible. And they gave up a 4th round pick for this guy. And it's like you just made a move just so people can just say, look, we made a move. Come on.
Well, on top of that, when he made the move, he knew his star, his franchise quarterback was going to be out for at least 4 weeks. Right? So their season is over. Yet they still went and spent a 4th round pick on a 1-year player. It's a 1-year player, right? It makes no sense. You cannot fail anymore on a trade. I guess you could have given a 2nd round or 1st round pick for him. But I mean, that is a total failure. That's not even a C grade. That's a pure F grade for the Cowboys. And here the Commanders come along and shore up not only get a stud player, but it is a definite player of need. It's not just like, oh, okay, we got the opportunity, we're going to go ahead and do it and add to it. There's a glaring hole, and they went out and didn't overpay. If you look, Peters went out and called a couple other teams about a couple other cornerbacks that he had value in. He called the Jets about their cornerback, and this was just the best move, the best player for the best value. And hey, Lattimore, welcome to DC.
Yes, sir. So to wrap this up on the Marshon Lattimore front, it sounds like we both not only like the trade, but we also like Jerry Jones. We like Jerry Jones in the front office.
Yes.
Of,
Yes.
Dallas Cowboys.
Never retire. Don't ever retire, Jerry.
Man, I hope they clone Jerry. He's got the money, man. Freeze him, clone him, whatever you need to do. Just Jerry forever.
Exactly.
So, but with that being the case, we're going to transition because another team that made a move would be the Pittsburgh Steelers making a trade for wide receiver Mike Williams from the New York Jets. Now, why was Mike Williams on the trading block? Was because head coach and GM Aaron Rodgers made the trade for Devontae Adams and brought him in, and then that pretty much pushed wide receiver 1 Wilson to wide receiver 2, and at that point, it's not enough balls to go around. So that made Mike Williams wide receiver 3, and he was at that point a tradable piece. Pittsburgh looking for some receiver help, and so they went out and made a trade for said wide receiver, and it just so happens to be our upcoming opponents this week in Maryland.
Yep.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Steel City. Bergen, was it black and yellow?
Yeah.
And I said yellow. I said yellow because I'm from the South. So black and yellow. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are our opponent this week, man. What say you, Ken?
Pittsburgh is 6-2 coming into Landover, Maryland. They're a team that's playing well, but man, Pittsburgh is a team that has always coached well, right? With problems. What's that?
Love Mike T.
Yeah, I mean,
Mike T can coach my team any day. I done said it before, and say it again.
I mean, here they have a Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson. What are you bringing both these guys in? What are you doing there? You had another quarterback that you drafted a couple of years ago. You end up letting him go. Where's he backing up in Atlanta, I think now? But it doesn't matter. He's not in Pittsburgh. And you start Justin Fields. He plays the first 6 games. You're 4-2, but your offense is still struggling a little bit. And they decided to make a change and go with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is 2-0 since he's joined. The offense looks a little bit better, but he's still not. If you look at his numbers, he's still not great by any means. He's in his 2 games, he's got a 63% completion rate. Right, that's average at best in the NFL. He's thrown 3 TDs, 0 interceptions, but Pittsburgh is riding on Najee Harris, right? Najee Harris is the offense runs around and through him. Russell Wilson is distributing the ball, but Najee Harris is the man. He's got almost 600 yards already. They're not halfway through the season. They played 8 games. They got 9 to go. He should, barring injury, he should definitely break 1,000. Get closer to 1,400 yards on the ground. And he's also, I believe, the 2nd or 3rd wide receiver. Yeah, he's 3rd in receiving catches. So, he's getting the bulk of the carries by far. And so again, he's a big impact person for the Pittsburgh Steelers from an offensive perspective these days.
Yes, and if you take away the rankings or the stats and where they rank in this league, listening to you describe this team sound like you were describing the Washington Commanders, right? Have a solid run game, Defense plays decent. Quarterback puts up good but not great numbers, but all they do is win. Sounds like a team I know that's in Maryland that's 7-2, right?
Yeah. They're
And,
yeah.
and granted, they have their workhorse running back, and we do a running back by committee, but our run game is what powers the engine, right? And
Right.
Jake Daniels is guiding this, right? He's guiding this, and he's done a hell of a job doing it. But it all starts, let's be honest, it all starts with our run game. And you can include Jayden in that run game because he's part of it. And I myself, we talked about it last week about how Jayden has done well as a rookie, but his numbers aren't eye-popping. I need to do a better job of recognizing that part of his game is the yardage that he gets with his legs, because I look just as his passing yardage. And for example, if he throws for 220 yards, and you go, it's not a great day passing, but he was efficient in his numbers, and then he picked up 50 yards rushing. That's almost 300 yards of offense that he accounted for.
Right.
So I need to do a better job of recognizing that within our quarterback. But that being said, though, Russell Wilson is an older version of what Jake Daniels currently is. The ability to run, the ability to move, extend plays, and all he's doing is winning. He's been back, and although it's just been 2 games, their offense has looked a little different under his quarterbacking. So it's gonna be a challenge, I think. And I mentioned Jake Daniels here, and I had a stat here. Let me see if I got it. That what Jayden has done, and through 9 games, right? Through 9 games, Ken, and 3 turnovers. 3 turnovers by our quarterback through 9 games. You know how
That's
many
a
we
team.
had?
That I believe that's a
team. That's a team.
That's a team. That's fumbles and interceptions lost.
You know how many we had? You know how many we had last year through 9 games?
Double digit.
Want to take a stab at it?
9. We had to be at least at 1.5 minimum. So that would put us at what? 14, 15. I'll say 15, and that might be low, but I'll say 14, 15.
So this year through 9 games, we have 3 turnovers as a team. Last year through 9, we had 20. So offense is doing good, man. Offense has done a great job of protecting the ball. And I think that's been a big reason why they're 7-2. Big reason why the offense has been efficient. Big reason why they've been able to sustain drives and all the things that helps you play winning football. And this team, 3 turnovers, man. It is unbelievable that this.
Yeah, I saw a stat. I didn't know how many we had last year, but I saw, I believe it was 1993 when the league started tracking team turnovers, right? How you have the turnover margin plus or minus or whatever. Washington with 3 turnovers through 9 games is the lowest of any team since they've been checking this since 93. So you're talking what, 30 years, roughly 31 years. And they are the number 1 team of the fewest turnovers in 31 years through 9 games. Great coaching, great decision-making, great holding the ball. Some of the people that turned the ball over are no longer here, obviously. Right. Gibson and obviously a quarterback change also, to probably the biggest culprits of the turnovers of that number of 20 last year. My guess is those 2 people alone probably accounted for 14 of them. But
we know
but it's good. I think
Gibson was a
what's
fumbler.
that?
We know Gibson was a fumbler, right?
Yes. And Sam was trying to do a lot and forcing some balls and young, and he didn't have a coordinator that was helping him at all. Didn't have an offensive line that was helping him. So, he's scrambling, trying to force plays to make things happen. And let's face it, he's not as good as Jayden Daniels on top of that. But Pittsburgh, their bread and butter, like it has been for years, though, is their defense, right? They're number 2 in points allowed in the NFL and number 6 in yards. And it's going to be a different look for Washington. Now, you got to go look at some of the teams that Pittsburgh has been playing, and while some of the teams aren't bad, they're not necessarily high scoring offenses. That's part of it, but they have a good offense. Tomlin will have them ready. Jaden's going to have his work cut out for him. Doesn't mean he's not going to be successful, but he's going to see some things, some looks that he hasn't seen yet this year. I promise you that. And I'm sure Kingsbury is going to get him ready and do everything to prep him for that, and watch game film and game film and game film. But Tomlin doesn't lose to many rookie quarterbacks.
Well, let's start with Mike Tomlin. Hasn't had a losing season during his coaching tenure.
Correct.
So he's a hell of a coach, and I said it before, man. I love what he does. But they're coming off of a bye week as well, so they essentially had 2 weeks to prepare for Washington. I will honestly say I'm not as concerned going into this game of our offense against their defense. I think it would be a challenge. I think the game will be physical, but having to pick between it, that's the least of my concern. My biggest concern is their offense against our defense. And I understand that, Marshon Lattimore will be coming in, but I can't imagine he'll be ready to play. In fact, I think he's still injured with his hamstring, so he probably won't play anyway. But even if he was healthy and was coming in, I don't know what the impact would be.
Right.
So, and the strength of their team, as you mentioned, is their run game, and it's given us fits. So for me, I'm more concerned about their offense against our defense. The veteran quarterback, the uptick in their performance, offensive performance, Russell Wilson, running game. Our defense has some holes, and that's where I'm concerned the most. I lost my train of thought there, Ken. But at the end of the day, Washington is favored by 3 points going into this game, which I found a little bit shocking. But 3 points is typically just home field advantage, right, with this game being in DC. But we're not used to being favored in games, and that may be why I'm a little bit shocked on this. For us to be favored against a team that is considered to be a good team in this league. Right. Pittsburgh has always had
6-2 leading your division at this point of the season. You're not. They're not a bad. Even if we win, Pittsburgh's not a bad team, right?
Not at all. Not at all. And this is going to be a good game, and it's a good test for us. But again, with us being the home favorites with the 3 points, was still a little bit surprising to me. Yep. That the spread that we were favored in this game, and I know we'll get into our confidence numbers a little bit later. But to your point, this is going to be a physical game, and I think Washington will have their hands full, and they have to do a short turnaround, and play Thursday night against the Eagles.
Yeah,
not ideal.
And we know of Washington's defensive struggles, right? But I'd still want to touch base about their defense. And one of the things that Jaden's going to have to deal with is Pittsburgh this year is one of the least blitzing teams out there, right? They're rushing consistently with 4, putting pressure, consistent pressure. Now they're not in the top 5 on sacks, but they consistently put pressure on everybody. And again, they're at 19.4% blitz rate, right? The average in the NFL is normally 28 to 31, 32% is about the average. And Washington fits in there. I think Washington is at about 28, 29%. So that there's more linebackers, more nickel safeties or corners back there that Jaden's going to have to account for. Right, you're used to accounting for 4. Well, now you got to account for 5, account for 6, account for 7. If they're able to consistently rush with 4, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be I think it's going to be a different look for what Washington does. And if Washington can get their run game going against a good defense, it'll help out tremendously. And I see Pittsburgh trying to run the ball more consistently. You know, what we saw the Giants do last week, I think we'll see that in the first half. We'll see it again, and the coaching staff will continue to do that through the second half if they have the level of success that the Giants had. The Giants couldn't keep it going because all of a sudden we scored 2 touchdowns in the end of the second quarter and kind of changed the dynamic. Our offense helped take them out of a running game.
Right.
So if we do that, then that's going to help our defense. But that's one of my concerns is from a Jaden perspective is he's going to see something different. I promise you, it's going to be a different look, not just once or twice, but consistently through the game. Not that he can't handle it, but you're still a rookie. You're still learning and seeing new things. So it'll be interesting.
Well, and I don't disagree with you, but I will say this, as I was pointing out, our offense against their defense, at least in my concern, right? Last week, going into the Giants game, the Giants were the number 1 sack team in the league, and our offensive line gave up 0 sacks, right? We're talking about our offensive line being one of our key spots on this team, which last year was being blamed for everything, right? And yet, Brandon Coleman, the rookie, had a lot of one-on-one snaps with Brian Burns and handled them just fine. And so if our offense line plays that way, again, I'm confident in what our offense could do. I think that Cliff and those guys will scheme up some plays to try to maybe run away from TJ Watt. I mean, TJ Watt is the defensive player of the year, all pro. I mean, the guy's a future Hall of Famer. And so he is, when he's able to, with him and his horsemen on the front, on the defensive line, able to get pressure, you don't need to blitz a lot. So I think that helps with the lack of blitzing required by their defense, because they can get pressure when you have a guy like TJ Watt on the line. But I think Cliff will scheme that up. I think they will figure out ways to try to minimize his impact. And look, it's one of those things you may not be able to stop him. You just hope to contain him, right? That'll add it.
Sure.
And but I feel good, whether that's going to be the screen game, whether that's just running away from the rush. I don't know what they're going to do, but I feel good about that. I'm gonna continue to go back to it's our defense against their offense, which is going to give me a little bit of heartburn. I was listening to one of I think it was Craig Hoffman, who was interviewing someone, and the guy mentioned that when it comes to making in-season trades, the NFL just in the history doesn't do a whole lot of them because it's hard to bring someone into your team and get them up to speed in the middle of the season. But he said that if there's ever going to be a position to transfer, and that's going to be cornerback. He says, because his point was cover 2 is cover 2. Zone is zone, man is man, no matter what team you're on. He says, we just may call it something different. We may call it orange and you may call it red or something of that nature in part of the scheme. But at the end of the day, you can walk onto the field and you can just say, Marshon, we're playing man. And he goes and play. But again, I don't think he's going to be a factor this week because, again, I don't know where his status is on the injury at this point. But my gut tells me that they may hold him out anyway. And if he's able to play, maybe get some snaps, because I think, again, it was a hamstring injury, so I don't know how bad or severe the injury is. But I think we'll see him probably more if he's available during the Eagles game, probably.
Yeah, and we don't know. I mean, yes, he had a hamstring, and that's what kept him out last week. Could he have played, but they wanted to shop him and not injure him more? It's possible. But yeah, if you watch some, I expect they'll be doing it. I noticed it against the Giants. Cliff did a lot of keeping, using the tight ends not only to help block, but also just to even chip block as they went out, along with the running backs and even the tight ends. Some of the tight ends that lined up in towards the right tackle or left tackle, they would run a route that would initially chip the defensive end. And again, they're not trying to block them. They're just trying to slow them down. So the speed receiver of Terry or De'Ami Brown or whoever it is, they can go, they've got time to run that extra 5 or 10 yards. If you just run a 5-yard slant, you don't need extra time. You don't need to chip anybody for that. It's doing that when you need a play to develop.
Correct.
That's when you do those kinds of things. This is going to be an interesting game. I think this is going to be a chess match type of game. I think both coaching staffs, Washington's defense and offense, have made adjustments. The defense has made adjustments. They're not performing where they want to be, but I think overall they're being coached well. They're not making mistakes. They're getting beaten, right? And sometimes the player or players across from you are just better than you. But we're not making consistent mistakes. We're not stupid penalties left and right all game long. We're not doing these things that hurt ourselves defensively and normally and offensively as well. That normally leads to, or the reason for that is good coaching. And again, we already talked about Pittsburgh is historically good coaching as well. This is definitely going to be an interesting game.
It will be an interesting game.
Reggie, do you think it's that time?
It's that time, brother.
It's that time.
You sound like old 70s DJ.
What's your name? What's your number? How you feeling about this game? It's
DJ Ken.
Everybody talks about it. Nobody tries to duplicate it. I can't believe they don't. I mean, all across the internet, everybody's talking about what's your name, what's your number when it comes to the Commanders, right?
Oh man! All right, what you got?
Maybe it's only our circle, but we know that people like it.
They do,
because we got people come up to us and tell us, just we don't even ask. They'll go, "Hey, my number's a 7, my number's a 2, my number's a 10."
They do,
yeah,
they do. These are facts. These are facts, folks.
But with that, Reggie, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
I'll go for it, man.
I'll keep mine short and sweet, man.
Okay.
Listen, this game, just like some of the other benchmarks along this season, is another one of those for me, and I'm a little concerned going this game. And what concerns me is more so about who Pittsburgh is and has been, right? Well-coached organization, well-coached team. They come to play. They play hard. It's going to be a dogfight. The fans travel well. It's going to be a packed-out stadium. And, this is going to be one of those games where they're going to have to play more of a perfect game than a game that they can get by with making some mistakes. Mistakes meaning, false start because of killing drives and selling for field goals. You can't have that kind of performance this week. I've said it once. I've said it twice. I'm more concerned about how our defense is going to perform against their offense, because I think that would be the difference in the game. But Mike Tomlin is going to have this team coached, man, well coached, and they're going to be prepared to play this game. That being said, man, we are 7-2 for the first time since 1996, right? A stat that has been thrown around quite a bit over the past few days, I guess, since we won on Sunday. And I'm not going to tell you how old I was in 1996, but I was around to remember 1996. But that being the case, man, my confidence number that we come out with this win and we go on and be 8-2 is probably a 6.
Okay.
I think we have a chance. I think if we play our brand of football that we've been playing, with the exception of the Giants game and the Bears game where we just kick field goals and we play and get back to scoring 27, 30 points a game, that type of thing, we'll win this game, no problem at all. But I'm not sure which team is going to show up. So with that, I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay, very good, very good. I jotted some notes here about this pick. Two things that I have before I give the number is, or kind of keys to us coming out winning. If we can do these two things, I think we're going to come out ahead. I'll throw in a third. Turnovers, right? We talked about we've only had 3 turnovers. Let's keep that number at 3 at the end of this game. That it's not something, it's not a crazy critical turnover. But besides that, it's controlling Pittsburgh's running game. We're not going to stop them, but we just cannot get run over. We cannot just get blasted for 5, 7, 12-yard time and time again. It can't be 3rd and 2 every time it's 3rd down. Right? We need some 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 10s. And if the running game gets going, it makes it easier for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is not the quarterback 5-6 years ago, right? He's not the quarterback in Seattle. And so if we can, not that he's a bad quarterback, but if we can put the game more in his hands with 3rd and long consistently, I think he'll potentially make mistakes or just not be able to pick up the first down. The other item is, I think you slightly touched on it. Are we scoring touchdowns or field goals in the red zone? When we get in the red zone, we got to score touchdowns. Can we go in there 3 times and score 3 touchdowns? Maybe not, but we need 2 out of 3, right? We can't go 0-3 and just kick field goals, or 1-3, right? We need more touchdowns in the red zone than we need field goals. And if we can do those 2 things to a moderate level, I think we come out with a win. My confidence, Reggie, we got a mind link. I'm at a 6 as well. It's not a strong 6. It's not a weak 6. It's an even 6. So great minds think alike this week, Reg.
All right, 6 it is. So 6 for you, 6 for me. But look, my belief and my feeling is I want this to be at a 10. But this is going to be good. And let me tell you, if we beat this Pittsburgh team, then the noise, positive might I add, around this team will be through the roof, right? Because Pittsburgh is considered one of those teams. And if we win this game and proceed to be 8-2, then the conversations around this football team, man, will be through the roof. And it's like, we're going to have to keep this at bay, because now people are going to be talking about Super Bowl and all this kind of stuff. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that's not going to stop the national media from making those kind of talks, because when they start looking at the 8-2 teams, or the team that's left, the best 8-2 team, where we are, the season ended today, all those types of conversations are going to be had. Right. And every time you look up, you're going to see the W logo, because we would potentially be 8-2. We will not potentially, but we would be 8-2 at that point.
Right.
And so we're going to be right up there with the Bills, the Ravens, the Lions, and all these teams, the Chiefs, all these teams that are suspected to be making some deep playoff runs. They're going to be talking about the Washington Commanders, the upstart Washington Commanders, right?
Yeah.
So I hope we win.
Yeah,
I hope we win, man.
Well, and to your point, I don't expect Marshon Lattimore to play, but if we win without him, and we have Lattimore all of a sudden healthy and into the understanding the defense and everything, and he's playing the next week against Philly,
Eagles.
on a short week, right? We just got a little bit better. We should, right? We should be. If we beat Pittsburgh, Lattimore comes in and is part of a team. At that point, we're even a little bit better than we were against Pittsburgh. How much, I don't know, but we should be a little bit better for the rest of the season.
We don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
No.
That's where we are. That's where we are. And hopefully we can get back on this thing next week, do a post game of this game. And hopefully I'm saying that we're 8-2, man. But that's all I got.
I like it. I'm enjoying the 7-2, 8-2. I'll be asking you to repeat that that record, if I hear you say it on the next podcast. But
yes, sir.
Until
Yes,
next
sir.
time, go Commanders. Thanks for listening.
Peace out.
Peace out, Knuckleheads.